classes, it has this feeling of trying too hard. That's what I hear in myself all the time, that I'm just trying too hard. And
Hmm.
like, I just want to try less and relax more.
Yeah, you're saying actually last night, when you were like, I don't know how to be a friend. I keep trying to fix it. I keep
Exactly. I'm like constantly trying. I think that there's something about that there's a push behind the trying. There's like a desperation to help people, to be helpful. And that bothers me, and I think it bothers the other person.
I don't know. To be honest, I'm feeling a little bit off today,
Mhm.
so I'm not
Mhm.
sure how vibrant and I'll be for a podcast, but we can certainly try.
Well, you know what? What if we're relaxed and we're not vibrant today?
Right,
What if
right.
it's not about the Instagram post look? You know what I mean? What if we're just in our,
Honest, right.
yeah, just authentic? That feels good and relaxing and relieving to me.
And what you're just saying about like you don't have to try so hard. Like what
Yeah,
if just being was enough?
yeah,
Nothing you have to do. There's no like song and dance. What if you didn't
yes.
have to sing or dance?
We don't have to sing or dance, exactly. It reminds me of some advice I got from one of my supervisors in process work. After all this, like, I'm not good enough. I don't think I could be the therapist enough. Like, all these things. He's like, and maybe I've told you this. He said, Amy, you kind of remind me a little bit of an old Tibetan woman. And I was like, oh, that's nice. And he said, just be an old Tibetan woman. That's all you have to do. Just the
Yeah.
being. Find that in
I was actually
myself.
just talking yesterday with a friend of mine. He just goes into all different kinds of meditation in churches. Like he went to like a
Hmm.
Catholic church and like hung out with the Catholic
Hmm.
monks, and like he's just open to anything. And he said when he walked into the Buddhist monastery and he said that the person that he talked with, their energy was so present. And so there's like a calming quality to it. It was really different than any other establishment that he went into. Just
Hmm.
that like really centered beingness, which really stood out to him. And as soon
Right.
as he said it, like we became that,
You could feel it,
just
right?
for a
Uh-huh.
moment, like, yeah, we became that Buddhist monk
Yeah.
and just like sunk into just being. And it was
Yeah.
such a relief. It was like floating down the river instead of
Right.
trying to swim anywhere or do anything, just sort of like surrendering to the flow that already is.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
We're, I think, like so conditioned by productivity, and it's like, I think that's why so many people are drawn to Buddhism. Simple and grounded and deep and present, and it's not about accomplishing or doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. It actually sort of ties into the Ram Dass quote about love and, you know, like finding that sort of universal love, not needing, not attached love, not love of a person, which is kind of fear based,
Mm-hmm.
not kind of, and like looking at love from a detached place, from, the place where it's not run by fear.
Right, not by attachment, not by gripping, not by trying to have something or keep something or make something mean something or
Right? By
anything.
doing
Yeah,
something, it's a being, not a doing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's like an emanation of the universe, right? It's like one of the energies that floats around that we can just kind of click into.
like instead of
Yeah.
I love you, separate loving separate, like together we are in the space of
We are
love.
resting in the space of love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Right.
yeah,
It's not really an action, it's more of a passive being.
yeah. It's the same thing. It's letting go and floating down the river that is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that
Yeah.
love, and then like if we're in our humanness, we just get stuck in our brains and our minds and the doingness of it.
Or the fear of losing and wanting stability. And yeah, we try to make things stable. I
Yeah,
just have so many ways of understanding life. Like, I've created all these structures of like, this is what existence is, or this, even just defining like that, like love isn't this, it's this, it's an energy, right? Even that is like an attempt to grab onto something that will help us feel more stable, which is, I think it's okay. I mean, we are alive and we are like trying to live in harmony and be okay in
Mm-hmm.
our lives. But I just feel like so often I'm like coming up with these like structures to rest into, like all of these little kind of concepts about or philosophies about life or the best way to live life, and how even those I have my attachment to them as the way of seeing things
Right.
as opposed to just being, beyond all those, all the millions of little phrases I hold on to as, guidance in life. Beyond that is just nothing, just resting into the stillness of presence and being.
So Jesse and I were talking about what we think is sort of like the meaning of life. Like, what's the point here,
Mm-hmm.
or what's happening here? And like, I don't know what I was saying, but whatever I was saying, he's like, well, I don't believe that. I believe something else. And the next day I realized, like, well, you know what? My mind is making it all up. Like, I'm clear, like, this is just a story, but it's the story that makes this life the most fun for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, so, like, that's what our minds do. We make stuff up. Nobody
Yeah.
knows,
That's
really. Like,
right.
nobody knows. But it just, to me, like, making up the most fun story, like the story that gives me access to the best life possible.
Yes, that I'm 100% with you on that. Because we do tend to be stuck in these stories that bring us misery, right? We tend to be in
Totally.
stories about ourselves, about other people, about the world, that can weigh us down. We can get so tripped up in our minds on a thought or a concept, and unconsciously being run by
Yeah.
thoughts that are negative. So yeah, so I think working to come up with structures that hold us and uplift us. Yeah, we are on a ride. Life is a ride, so we might as well make it fun. Me and you on the roller coaster.
Woo! For me, it's important to remember, like, oh, I'm just making this up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's an important piece too, is like, I don't know anything.
Right.
There's a group here in town that practices some kind of sort of Buddhism. It's interesting, that just the 3 minutes that I watched that I made all of my assumptions about
Uh-huh.
was, basically we move towards things that make us happy and move away from things that cause us pain. I don't necessarily want that to be my life practice. I don't want to move away from pain. I don't, it's not, to me, it's not about being happy. Really.
Hmm.
Like, I think it's just being okay with whatever is, including the pain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't want my practice to be avoid pain,
Uh-huh.
because I think that part of life is pain. Embracing the pain gives me more joy than running away from the pain.
Nice, nice. Uh-huh.
It's full. And that,
Right.
to me, that's like a joyful life, is embracing exactly what is. So in a
Mm-hmm.
way, it is contradictory, but like, I also feel like it's not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it seems like what you're talking about, some kind of wholeness or acceptance, and not avoiding things that are there, the things that come up, as opposed to like, oh, I have a choice between joy and pain. I'm going to move towards joy, place of grace about whatever is, accepting and being present to what is.
Equanimity, one of my
Mm-hmm.
favorite words. Just like
Mm-hmm.
approaching everything with equanimity, everything, the pain and the joy,
Mm-hmm.
they're they're big experiences. Just letting go in the river again, sort of
Right.
fighting against something.
Yeah. Right. Making anything wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite bumper stickers is don't believe everything you think,
That's a good
so
one.
not making things or catching yourself if you're making something wrong or bad or that it shouldn't be like this. And like, even when somebody says like, oh, a terrible thing just happened, I'm always like, is it really terrible, or is it just the thing that happened and now we have to figure out how to respond to it, like how we want to respond to it.
Yeah, I just read too. I don't remember where I see these things. Is the Buddhist belief that life is suffering. Is that what it is? Life is suffering.
No, it's in life there is suffering. Suffering is inevitable as part of the human experience. And
So
that's a
this,
mistranslation that's really
right.
common,
Yes,
is
that's
that
what I was
life
going to
is
say.
suffering. That's not the right translation.
It's not, it's a mistranslation. So
Yeah.
maybe we read the same thing, or maybe this is more
I was a
common knowledge.
major, that was my
Oh, yeah,
major, is
right.
Buddhism. Yeah.
That it's more likely that it was, instead of suffering, it's uncomfortable.
Well, I think, yeah, maybe discomfort, yeah, as a form of suffering. Yeah.
Right. And then what we talked about, I don't think it was in the podcast, but we talked about this before, that like life is pain, but suffering is the choice. Like the suffering is
Mm.
the story.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm.
you know, listen to this, that there's pain in life. There just is. There is. Like life is
Right.
painful,
Mm-hmm.
and suffering is the story that comes right after the pain. And the suffering,
Right.
sometimes it happens so fast you don't
Um,
realize there's a separateness. But
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if you can peel it apart or give some space between the pain and the suffering, and realize that the suffering is actually the story.
Is the story. We suffer because of the story.
Exactly.
That's that
What's
part
going to
where like
happen?
we
It's like
make up
fear, right?
stories. It's about
Exactly. The
mm-hmm,
fear of the
not
future. Like,
just
what's this going to mean? Or what did happen last time? Like, there's like a story that happens, but the pain is just the pain,
right.
right? It's like teasing them apart,
Yeah.
and seeing suffering for what it is.
Yeah. Like if an animal is injured, are they suffering or are they just experiencing pain? And they're having that experience. And yeah, and one of the really cool things about pain, at least from a process work perspective, is that it's like it's full of power. Pain is like basically power, in a certain way. And so usually, so I'll describe how we work with pain in process work is like if you're feeling pain, then there's like some part of you that's vulnerable and it's getting hurt. I'm just going to make that with my hand, like that this is like some kind of like soft mushy thing that's vulnerable. And then there's a pain, right? Pain is coming in. And so when I'm experiencing suffering or feeling pain, it's from the perspective of this thing.
Mm,
Ow, why are you doing that to me? Why are you doing that to me? But we forget that the thing that's the pain piece is also us, right? It's like part of our process. It's like something's happening inside the body, let's say, and like one thing inside the body is going like this and the other's like this. And we think of it from the perspective of this. Ow, that hurts. Stop it. But if we can shift our perspective and study this thing, the
mm,
poker, right?
mm,
Usually it's something that we need more of in our lives, in our personality, in our energy body. And that if we can start to feel like, well, what would it feel like instead of to be this thing, to be this thing? And if you start getting into that, it can give the person so much energy. So you can just see how it's more about like where we focus
mm.
than what's
Interesting.
actually happening, because there's
Mm,
many things happening and we're just choosing to focus from this place and forgetting that this has a lot of power and probably a huge gift for us.
mm.
Probably like if we can integrate more of that, like we just have more of our vitality and we're feeling like poor
Mm.
me. But this
Victimy.
thing does not feel like poor me at all. It feels
No.
very strong and powerful, and
Uh,
we have access to it, just like we have access to being the mountain or
Interesting. So this is an experience that I had today, and let me know if this is sort of similar on that line. So, when I was young, I had an experience of being held down, and I didn't have any control, and I felt very much like that soft,
yeah,
spongy victimy thing.
right,
I
right,
don't know. I wouldn't feel like a victim. Anyway, whatever. Felt very vulnerable,
yeah,
and just recently finding in my body actually this strong urge to push. Like I
right.
just wanted like this powerful energy. So the other day when I was weightlifting, I was bench pressing, and it was a pretty heavy weight. And I thought of that, and I actually felt it in my body, that like strong urge to push something off of me. And
Mm-hmm.
the bar moved so fast.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that was just
yes,
changing my focus from the experience, from being
right,
like vulnerable and squishy and like hurt, to like
yeah,
I have this like rage in me that just wants to push, that
yeah,
came from that experience that
right.
I was able to tap into.
Yes, exactly. Yes,
It's
it is
powerful.
the same thing. Yeah, it's shifting your assemblage point and and being in a different part of your process. And like you did, like you can almost always find it in your body, even if it's like a psychological thing. It's like you start thinking about trauma from childhood. Like for me, it's like, oh, right away, I have a fist in my heart. Like as soon as I like just recalled this thing from my childhood, I have a fist in my heart. So I could feel that like, oh gosh, when I think about that, it hurts so much. Or I could think about the fist, I was pissed and I wasn't expressing it. I was pissed.
Yeah.
I was pissed and I didn't let myself express it.
What are you going to do with that?
What do you mean right now?
That power. Yeah. What do you get to put that? Where do you use it? I guess it's in your toolbox. You use it whenever you need it.
Yeah. And even just having that tool to recognize when you have an experience that there's more than one part of the experience. We're not only the one who's saying, ow, but we're also this. And I can pick that up and use it. It's a tool. It's right there in the middle of my chest. It's a tool.
That's what it felt like to me when I was bench pressing.
Yes.
It's like I can feel it like across, like from like elbow across my chest to elbow. Just like
so often when people get attacked, like women, if they're walking and they get attacked, they'll just go silent. They won't say anything. They won't fight. They'll, crunch up. I think that we as women, are just ancestrally, quieted. It's like a pretty big thing to turn that all around and start being expressive and having fists and pushing weights and pushing voices, people and having voices and being
years ago, like 1996, I took a women's self-defense class, and a lot of it was just voice, finding our voice, using our voice, dominating with our voice, telling people what to do strongly. And there were a couple of older women, I mean, they're older, they're probably my age now, ancient, 50. One. Who had a really hard time, like mousy voice. They couldn't find it. They couldn't find it.
Yes, exactly.
You need more practice. Yeah. You need more practice.
Yeah. And, we're the next generation, and hopefully our children are the next generation. I mean, they are the next generation, but hopefully they can be louder and even stronger and have, as we work on ourselves.
This is why my kiddo, now non-binary, part of the reason why they feel strongly about being non-binary is they saw the power that men have in our society that women don't have access to. Yeah. And they wanted that power. They wanted that, it's like that. I want that. I don't want to be stuck in this box, so they made a new box.
Right. Yeah. So clearly the roles are still pretty defined, right?
And there's this movement towards, I see that role and I don't want it. I want that role. I want something else. I want to be the powerful role. And there's a movement, I think, in this generation towards claiming that power. I feel like that's part of what the switch to non-binary is, part of it. And it's complicated. Right. But that's what I see in my kid and I see in their friends. Yeah. It's like this power, this owning this power that I didn't have. I didn't know you could do that at 17, It's pretty rad.
I've always since I was little, I wanted to be better than all the boys. Like that was always my goal. And that's why I felt like it was really important to be smart. And really important to be competitive, like the things I was talking about last night. Really important to be good at things. I just want to be better than the boys. That was all I cared about. But you can see in that, even in that, this assumption that the boys were better than me. And I was going to sneak up and be like the rare girl that was as good as or better than the boys. I want to beat all the boys. So it was like, but I wanted to do it as a girl. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to give up my gender for it. I want to do it like for women, for myself as a woman. I don't want to say like no to who I am, because I very much feel like a woman. Yeah. It's interesting. But yeah, that's where all of that competitive stuff in me comes from, is like smarter than the boys, better than the boys. Like, I'm so excited to go back to Nima's parents' house and fix their refrigerator because there's something wrong with their refrigerator, and I fixed this one here. The same thing was wrong with this one. So now I'm going to like be better than the boys basically and fix all the fix all their appliances.
Yeah, you fix all the toilets.
Exactly. It's like so
Mm,
important to me that I
yeah.
have that identity. And, again, that's a gripping. It's not healthy. And that's when my eyes start popping out and I start screaming because it's so funny. Like, I think I've had to just try so hard, not only to be better than them, but to be seen as better than them.
Right.
And I've
Right.
had so many experiences where it's like I was with a community of men or boys and I saw something or knew something or had an idea that never got heard, never got any airtime, nobody listened to me basically because I was a woman sharing my part, and it's happened to me several times and I want to, it's funny, this is like emotional for me, but I want to be able to like rest into my femininity and grounded in that enough that I don't have to scream how I feel and what I think. And I can just say it from this deep, resonant Tibetan woman place.
Here we
Right?
are it's funny. I was like, wow, we've come so far from where we started, but whoop, we didn't. Here we are, right
No, we
back, full
didn't.
circle. Like,
Yeah.
it's not about doing, it's about being. There's no fight here. There's no fight.
Or there is a fight, but the fight's a story. And hopefully the story brings us to a deeper place in ourselves, a deeper, more authentic
You have nothing to prove to
place.
yourself or anyone else. You know. And in your knowing, everyone knows.
Right, like the Buddhist monk, and when you walk into the monastery, they don't have to say. It's not about what they say. It's not the content that they share, and they're not trying to ram something down your throat because it's so important. Will I?
That's great. That's so great.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for these talks because it's such a good reminder for me, like it's easy to get spun off and forget. That's just being human. It's just like human.
I think I told you yesterday that I've just been really into these kind of games that are contentless. It's like such a happy release from like figuring things out or understanding anything, just like making squares. these games that I've been playing. It's just so nice to do something that's like just about structure or just about like, and also fixing appliances. There's no content there except for that content behind the scenes of like,
Right.
Amy can fix this.
That big story.
Right, there is a big story behind, but the actual practical thing of fixing things is just really fun.
Yeah, that's why I love mowing the lawn. I love actually very
Exactly.
similar. Like, I do also like folding laundry and doing dishes and vacuuming. And I really like mowing the lawn. It's the same thing for me, except for it's like traditionally a male thing to do, which is
Right.
also why I love it.
Yeah, and lifting
like raking.
weights.
That's true. Raking leaves and mowing lawn. Like it's contentless and it's order and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just instantly beautiful.
Right.
And powerful. It's powerful. And I love that those are the things that I'm attached to. Is mowing the lawn and raking weights.
And then you get the smell of cut grass.
Yeah.
I love that smell.
And the smell of the leaves. Yeah, I do love lifting weights. And actually that's the way that I am competitive. Like I don't lift as much as a guy, but pound for pound, like for the size I'm fucking strong.
You're a contender.
And I love it. I love it's similar to you. Like I want to walk into the gym and like kick ass.
Be the badass.
I want to be better than the boys. Yeah. That's where I'm competitive. That's where it shows up for me. Yeah. And it's so fun. I love being a surprise that way. It stings their ego a little bit, maybe. Maybe I like that too. It's good for my ego. So there's stuff to keep in check.
It's fun.
Well, I have an ego. Guess what? I've got an ego.
Me too.
Not about dissolving the ego. You can't dissolve the ego. You have an ego. You're in a body. You're human. You can have.
They're actually important. The ego is
Exactly.
important. It keeps us
It is.
alive. It's like really
It does.
good.
Otherwise, like,
It's good to
you
have
walk
it
out,
in.
you get hit by a bus.
Right.
The
Oops.
ego's a good thing. It's just like the clinging, the attachment, the relationship to the, the story you have
The
about your
fear.
ego. Right.
Yeah, the
Exactly.
fears.
It's like letting go of that. It's like, again, letting go down the river. And that was really good. Like, I don't want to dissolve my ego. I kind of like my having my ego around, but I don't necessarily want to run the stories that are disempowering.
Yeah, right.
So
Right.
that having
So
a more clear relationship with it, maybe.
I've been like hugely in my ego, about like all those things that I was doing last night that I was so proud of myself about. Like, I don't know. I just think it's fun. It's something that you can play with, as
Right.
long as it's
Exactly.
not, yeah, as long as you know
Exactly.
what it is, it's not running the show, it's not unconsciously running you.
And that same thing that I was saying before is like choosing the viewpoint of the universe, like the meaning of it all that gives you the most joy.
Hmm.
Like, again, it's just the story that we're making up. And where do you have the most freedom in the story?
Yeah. A friend of mine told me about, have you heard about this term, the witch's mandate? If it works, use it. Like, it's like not about what's true or what's not true. It's like, does it work for you? Use it. If having like a positive outlook on life gives you a better life, then like you got it. And who cares if it's true or not true? It works for you, basically. It's like not really so much about truth. It's more about like following what works,
Mhm.
following inspiration or following joy or following, your truth.
What if your
I've
truth is like to be mean and stingy and steal things from people?
Then you're on a path of learning about that.
That's right. Yeah, that's your path.
Yeah,
You might end
then
up in jail, and that's your path.
that's
You
your
might end
path.
up with no
Yeah,
friends. You might end up dead or whatever, but that's your path.
right. Yeah, like what's like Scrooge. Scrooge had a lesson to learn, right?
It's true. And then it goes back to equanimity. Like, who's to
Hmm.
say that like people who are good hearted are better?
Uh huh.
Like, it's all just the path that we're on. It's all just experiences.
Exactly. And everybody has their own unique myth. We were all born at the end of a long chain of ancestry into a unique situation, and we all have trauma. Everybody is raised with trauma, like birth is a trauma. So forget about it. Like everybody falls and skins their knees or gets their feelings hurt or witnesses people yelling or whatever. Like we all go through shit. And so then like everybody has to figure out how to get through that on their own, like whatever stories we're living out but from our parents, from our past, from our
Hmm.
present, like we're all just navigating. And I really believe that everybody is on a lesson filled evolutionary path, and some people are stumbling and it's taking them a long time and they're falling more than they're getting up, or they're doing two steps backward before they go forward. But yeah, I don't judge anybody for the way that they are organizing their lives. And I really think that everybody is doing their own best. I think we've talked about that one before, right? That phrase,
Hmm.
everybody's always doing their best.
Okay. Even when it doesn't, the judging mind doesn't look like it, or like it looks like they're hurting somebody, or like horrible,
Uh-huh.
terrible, like you know
Mm,
warfare or genocide or whatever. Like, even like the
hmm.
ugliest ugly,
Right.
it's
Inside that
all just still a
person's
path.
reality, like they are doing what's right. They wouldn't be like, I'm the evil one. But even if they were, let me see if I could do it. I am here for evil. I believe in evil. Evil's good.
What about
Like
sociopaths though? Like,
who's a
I don't
bad
know.
person? Hmm.
It's
Yeah, they're
you know,
doing. Uh-huh.
it's
So
like
somebody who's a sociopath, like, has walled themselves off emotionally because they can't handle it. Like they were so traumatized that they can't care about anybody or anything. It hurts too much. They
mm,
cannot.
mhm,
They've turned that off.
mhm,
So that person is suffering the most. People who like bump into them, yeah, they get hurt, or killed or whatever. But it's coming from that person's suffering, and that
mhm.
person is like, strategizing to be okay. Yeah.
That's some big compassion there,
Yeah.
to come from, to see the world that way. It's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of compassion.
Hmm. I think I just really believe it. Like, it doesn't feel like it's like, oh, I have the biggest heart. I just really believe it's true. Um, yeah, that inside any individual is their survival path and their growth path, and the piece that we're missing is facilitation, communication, patience, structure around conflict. That should be the first thing we learn in school, is relationship skills. And
Yeah,
we don't.
not at all.
So we're out here hurting each other. We hurt each other a lot. Because we don't have the skills, we don't have the tools. I think ultimately everybody wants to feel okay in themselves, right? Everybody wants to feel at peace in themselves. I think most people, ultimately want to feel like they can relax and feel okay about their lives, right? But wow, we have big stories in the background. I'm in environments sometimes where people are very invested in controlling each other. And I just watch this micromanagement of people just trying so hard to control each other or judging each other. And it just creates a misery in the atmosphere. Like a person walks in the door and you can, before anybody opens their mouth, you can already feel it. They're already going to tell each other, you can feel the structure come up where like somebody wants somebody to be doing something different than the way that they're doing it. And yeah, I think we could all let each other be a little bit more, a little bit more grace and acceptance. And it probably comes mostly from not fully accepting ourselves, and then we see things in other people, and yeah, seems more obvious maybe out there.
Yeah, there's, if something's wrong with somebody else, it makes you feel better about yourself somehow. Like, look
Right.
how messed up their life is. Makes you feel better about you. If you point the finger outside of you, I think that's why we love, like, the news is all, this horrible thing happened to this person, or oh my God, Jennifer Aniston's never gonna have a baby. Like it's like the tabloids all the time. It's like she's whatever. She wanted to have a baby. She's never gonna have a baby. Like, look how horrible her life is.
Huh.
To make ourselves feel better about our own lives. And it just seems like there's a better way. There's a better way.
Well, I bet with Jennifer Aniston, a lot of people feel, this just in for me. I had no idea about Jennifer Aniston. But I bet a lot of people who can't have babies feel some sisterhood with her, and compassion, or not just judging her from like, my life's better than hers, but like, oh, we're all in this together. Everybody's human. And like, again, with the myth, and we all have these stories, and yeah, accepting what is. Yeah, we do something like that. That's all, folks. Until next time. Yeah. See you
Thanks for
later.
hanging out with us.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.